Last time we left off here, Ivy was added to the relationship between Killer Frost and Sunny, basically becoming a three relationship. Because now you have the brains of Ivy, the brawn of Sunny, and now the cool-hearted power of Killer Frost. So basically, the three of them ended up on Benoy, investigating the whereabouts of Wesker. However, they found out that he had been distributing some vial of an infection, and so, unfortunately, the infection broke out on Benoy, and now we are in the events of Dead Island, where they have found one of the immune, that being Sam. But right now they are in a laboratory experimenting, figuring out how to, well, counteract it. But right now they also need to find out who has been contacting them through on the radio. And this is where we actually get to them trying to find a way to leave the island. So believe it or not, they actually make their way to a boat wreckage, or at least an area where there's a whole bunch of boat wreckages, right? So Sunny pretty much utilizes his strength to drag one of the boats to the garage, and this is where they wind up meeting Jin and her father. Her father is kind of fighting off the infection, or at least fighting off the remnants of it, so he is the only one capable of getting them to, well, or getting them the help that they need, despite the fact that it's very possible the others could honestly just do it themselves. But right now, they need all the help they can get, so they do manage to hold off the zombies until he's done fixing up everything. And so, they have a boat now. And believe it or not, it's a lot better than the one in the original. But now they have to do one more thing. They have to be able to, well, get Jin out of there. And considering the sheer fact that they've actually helped just about everybody, they do, might as well just take Jin with them, because again, she is the only innocent civilian that they can honestly manage to, well, take right now, while not trying to take around anybody else. So for right now, yeah, they do wind up taking Jin along with them. And believe it or not, this is it's pretty smooth from here on out. I don't see anything, that could either change or even go wrong at this point, believe it or not. I actually do think that they managed to get their way to the prison, and, well, this actually takes a different turn. They find a new breed of zombie, that being the Clotter. Now, if you guys don't know what the Clotter is a zombie breed that is actually able to blast blood at its opponent. You might say, oh, okay, so it harms itself, right? Yeah, about that. See, when it blasts blood at its opponents, it doesn't really harm itself. It's actually able to inflict a bleed damage, likely because there's possibly parts of bone within the blood, but overall they do manage to yeah, they have to defeat this Clotter, but every time they try to get close to it, it manages to just disappear and goes to another area of the museum. Or sorry, not the museum, the prison. And so this is where a lot of things do change. With them not finding out about how the infection came about, just believing that, okay, Wesker's there, right? So they managed to not only find Sam, or, they managed to pretty much keep Sam safe away from the Clotter, because it's trying to bond with him. It's trying to absorb him, basically. And considering the fact that that was the Clotter's original intention, or at least the Dirge's original intention within the the original Dead Island 2 game, yeah, I do think that we should actually have this be a progress, as again, it could actually lead to unspeakable consequences that not even Ivy could honestly quantify at the moment. So believe it or not, they're just trying to keep Sam safe the best that they can at the moment. And believe it or not, they are able to. And they make their way to find Stryker. Now, Stryker at this time still has his infected wife, and he's trying to find a way to make a cure for her. However, this is where Ivy pretty much informs her, as a doctor herself, she's too far gone. They've seen what this infection has and what this infection takes, and while Stryker, not in the mood to hear this, pulls out his gun. Sunny, not wanting anyone to get shot here, simply steps in front of him and pretty much stands over him. And this is actually intimidating enough for Stryker to start fidgeting with the gun in his hand, saying that he wouldn't. And this is where Sunny kind of looks at him like, Do I look like I'm supposed to be the friendliest creature on the planet? I'm trying to figure out whether or not you think I'm not about to swing on you. You got a gun pointed at my babies. You think I'ma just let that slide? And so Stryker, even though he is a bit concerned, does ultimately drop the gun, or at least puts it away for the time being. And so, well, he does contact a helicopter and manages to get them all out of there. Now, you might say, does Stryker leave his wife? I'm going to say yes, he does. I think that would honestly be the best way he could even, come close to doing anything for her. Leaving her there is probably the most realistic option because, again, he still doesn't have the strength to kill her. But now with them on the helicopter and now having to make their way off the island. However, this is where we actually see that Ivy is conducting any research she still has on the data, having already kept one of the laptops from the island. However, unfortunately, they do have to be, I guess you could say, grounded because there is a military ship that is led by Serpo. Now, Serpo is actually pretty invested in how this infection happened, how he, kind of got here. And believe it or not, unfortunately for them, they don't know that Serpo already has some of the infection or some of the vials on their ship. So, believe it or not, during one of the storms, the vial does get loose, and this causes the infection on the ship to actually happen. Keep in mind, this is a military vessel, so they are able to find and make weapons a lot quicker. Albeit, Frost honestly just doesn't need it, and the rest of them kind of just break out on their own. Obviously, Sam, being the only one that is human, does still need his, does still get his weapons and stuff here. So he's the only one that's really going to be using, weapons and stuff like that, along with Jin, obviously. So believe it or not, with them all using their weapons, this is where Stryker manages to actually escape along with Serpo, with both of them actually conducting a plan to probably get Sam because he is the only one they think that is immune. That is at least until they are able to not only reclaim the ship, but they do manage on crashing on Palanai, where they run into Leon and Jada. Oh, sorry, not Jada. Ada at this moment. And this is actually where everyone catches up and kind of gives everyone up to speed on the situation. And this is where they meet another immune, or at least two more immune, that being Harlow, who they don't know is an immune yet. And then there's Danny, the youngest one of the group, probably around the same age as Jin at this moment. And well, believe it or not, yeah, she's also known to be an immune. Now, again, if you guys don't know, Danny is one of the few playable characters from Dead Island 2, and she's honestly one of my favorites in my opinion. She's definitely one of my favorites, other than the other than someone like Carla, who I just love her personality in all honesty. But overall, yeah, these guys are pretty much all set and ready to go, in my opinion. They are able to make their way back to the Paradise Survival Camp, where they actually do begin discussing everything that's happening along with Harding. Now, if you guys don't know, Harding is one of the few military men that actually did want to keep the civilians safe. So he's actually one of the good, soldiers within the series. I know, kind of crazy to believe in a series where everyone's trying to get your blood and experiment on you. And so this is where Harding begins to explain that if they don't really leave this island, then it's very possible that they could all get caught up in a nuke. However, Ivy simply states that right now they need to make their way to the laboratory in order to really find out what caused this infection in the first place and how they could pretty much, prevent it from becoming a major problem in the future. So believe it or not, yeah, they do have to make their way towards the towards the city. And believe it or not, this is where they encounter some of the newer infected, that being wrestlers, and they also encounter the super infected or the enhanced infected. And this is where Ivy does take her time to even dissect and examine these infected. And well, she doesn't like what she sees. There's mutations in these zombies, to which after, killing the wrestler and being able to experiment on it, this is where Sonny pretty much asks is, what kind of mutations, if you will? To which he says on a genetic level. We don't know how it could even affect Sam either, considering he isn't immune, but it's very possible he could just get heightened or overly heightened aggression. To which, this is when Sam actually does go into one of his rampages during, the negotiation with the prisoners, and he utterly kills him. To which, no one's really fazed by the fact that he killed him. It's just the sheer fact that he kind of went into a berserker rage. However, before his berserker rage ends, he does lunge at the group, where Sonny simply grabs him like a child and just kind of holds him into the air until he calms down. And well, that does it. He just calms down right then and there. It's over right then and there. His rage is over. But this is where they also have to discuss what the heck just happened. Keep in mind, they don't meet the doctor in this storyline, and they kind of just have to go with themselves because, again, Ivy has been reliable. To which Ivy does conduct a little bit of experimentation at the moment while they are repairing, the ferry and stuff. And, well, Sonny, Frost, and Sam do have to hold off the infected, albeit it's not hard for them. Frost can just make the barriers with utter ease, while the civilians just kind of finish up fixing the ferry. And if any infected does manage to find a way around the building, Sonny can just jump up and just slash them or just tear them to smithereens. So in all honesty, everything's going smoothly. Like, just, there's no issues, there's no problems, everything's just going smoothly for them. So they have to make their way towards the city. And believe it or not, I think at this point they would have to convince the civilians that there is hope. But this is where Sonny does note to Frost and Ivy, do we actually leave them again? I mean, we could just take Danny and Sam and just leave. However, Frost says, look, we already got to hang with the consciousness that we left them, or left that island full of people after getting them settled. So unfortunately for right now, we kind of owe it to these guys to stay here, at least for the moment, or at least until we find a better way to kind of just drop them off, or maybe keep them somewhere that's safe. And this is where Sonny ultimately does agree, albeit some of his, more survival instincts are more at play than his more heroic instincts. I mean, you might say, well, he was raised by Batman, so he should be able to, care for the citizens, right? And he does care. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but it's just more or less on the lines of everything's kind of, stacked against him at the moment to even keep the civilians safe. So they do make their way to the movie theater, which would definitely be, in all honesty, that would have to be their one and only smart move, is just to get to the theater as quick as possible. And I think after really doing that, they should be fine, right? They're fine there. And believe it or not, Sonny and the rest of them can just go about their day, go about and pretty much save anyone who needs saving, help out, gather any supplies. But this is where they find Serpo. Yeah, just like in the original of the story, they do find Serpo, and well, they find out he was the, I guess you could say, proprietor, or one of the few people that actually worked alongside the likes of Wesker. And this is where they begin to interrogate him. And I mean interrogate him. Like, it's not fun. Like, they freeze him, Ivy uses thorns around him, and then Sonny just adds on to it by utilizing his claws and just gently digging into his skin. So, he's not having a fun time in this interrogation at all. And pretty much Serpo fesses up on everything. And I mean everything. What they done, what he's did, everything. He pretty much states that whatever the blood had was from one of these zombies. And so, believe it or not, this is where they encounter a Clotter. However, the Clotter has absorbed Harlow, and they find out that Harlow was one of the immune. Now, the Clotter doesn't fully take over Harlow, but it does enhance her physiology, and this is where they have no other choice but to kill Harlow. So Danny, Sam, Jen, and, well, the rest of the trio pretty much just tear apart Harlow, unfortunately. And pretty much what they do with Serpo is kind of horrible. They kind of leave him there in a corner and just hope that the zombies don't find him. That's kind of what it is. They kind of just leave him there like, look, if they find you, they find you. They don't go screaming. Don't go doing none of that. If they find you, they gonna get you. And ain't nothing you can do about it. So, unfortunately for Serpo there, he's zombie chow. Yeah. So unfortunate that he winded up as zombie chow and just, winded up dying such a horrible death despite all the things that he did and everything. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they get off the island and they do take the civilians with them this time. I don't think they'll be able to really keep that on their conscience for doing it twice. But again, considering the fact that they've never been to the hospital and they've only been to the movie theaters, they really they aren't able to save everyone. But that is kind of the cost of being a hero now, isn't it? You can't save everyone no matter how much you try. And no matter how much good you want to do, not everyone's going to accept it or even want it, believe it or not. And I do think this is one of those instances where being able to help everybody just doesn't work in the end of the day. Unfortunately for them, it's just a way that just says, well, we tried our best, but we couldn't get everybody. You get what I mean? And believe it or not, they do make their way off the island. And this is where, considering the fact that their boat would be a lot better, and I do think that they are able to make their way towards the beach area of Los Angeles. And seeing a military tower, they make their way over. However, this is where tragedy kind of strikes. They unfortunately encounter zombies that are on fire more frequently. They encounter slobberers, some butchers, everything. And this, believe it or not, does manage to kill some of the civilians before they wind up getting into the military tower where they meet the colonel. Now, the colonel is a straightforward type of girl, so I don't think she would reject them or rebuff them. However, she is kind of skeptical with a whole darn monster inside of her base of operations. However, Sonny's like, hold on, wait a minute, chill out. We ain't gotta shoot bullets at nobody. And just for the record, I am bulletproof, so it ain't gonna work how you want it to work. So let's put the gun down and not do something that the other person is going to regret, i.e. meaning you. So basically, after pretty much winning her over, kind of, sort of, Sonny is able to kind of explain where they've been, what they've been doing, and, well, how it's been going for them so far. And this is where the colonel's pretty much like, so you guys been doing the same thing I did? Yeah, I've actually met a couple of your friends just a couple minutes ago, and this is where they're looking like, friends? Wait, you mean, yeah, I've seen Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. So believe it or not, this is where they actually go to find them. And believe it or not, they're actually working around Sola at the moment. Now, Sola is pretty much the area where a whole festival takes place, and it's filled with things like Clotters and stuff like that. So they pretty much find them there. However, they also, when they do find them, it's a pretty much a good reunion with everything, with obviously them meeting the likes of Jin and everyone else, right? However, this is where when they see Sonny, they're a bit devastated to actually see him. And this is where Sonny notices, and he asks them, what's going on? You guys look like you've seen something you shouldn't. What's going on? And this is where they tell Sonny to sit down, as the news they're about to give him is quite unfortunate. So they tell him that when they came to LA, it was horrible. Like, it didn't take too long for the infection to spread. However, when they made their way through the sewers, they met Croc. And he's actually happy. Waylon's alive, right? He's doing great for himself. I mean, what more could he want? He's actually ecstatic. He's happy, but he sees their faces. And he's looking at them like, you can't be serious. To which they don't say a word. They don't even want to look him in the eye. And he gets more and more intense as he demands that they tell him that he's alive. And well, they say yes, he is alive. To which this is where Sonny is picking up on that, that butt part, and he says, "Tell me, what happened to him?" And to which this is where they say they fought a Clotter, bigger, stronger than likely the ones they've encountered. And unfortunately, he took Croc as a host. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. What is Sonny going to do now the fact that his father figure, his first friend, someone that he always trusted, is now a part of the infection and is now a part of being one of the strongest zombies of all time? But hey, I'm going to let you guys go. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day.